KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates small businesses, the enduring lifeblood of our community, with the launch of the KBLA SMB Marketplace. For the first time, small to medium-sized businesses will have an opportunity to promote their goods and services on KBLA and take advantage of our powerful reach and local marketing power. The SMB Marketplace is hosted exclusively on KBLA1580.com and is accessible from all our social media channels. Whether you're a small mom and pop restaurant, a car dealership, or a professional practitioner, we invite you to join in this new KBLA Talk 1580 initiative to promote your business. As a Black-owned small business, you don't want to miss this unique opportunity to gain new customers on KBLA Talk 1580. For more information, contact us today at smb@kbla1580.com. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
And if I share with you my story, would you share your shadow with me? Time to get paid.
It's the Queen of Soul, the late, great Aretha Franklin. I miss Aretha. But she sounds as good now as she ever did. Much love to the Queen, Aretha Franklin. We're playing that song, Miles is, because we are going to talk about respect here, or the lack thereof, in just a second. But let me tell you where we're going for the rest of this hour first. I'm pleased to have two authors on, co-authors, I should say. Political scientists Jeff Springer-Halev and Elizabeth Tice Morse, to talk about their new text, Respect and Loathing in American Democracy. Love that title. Respect and Loathing in American Democracy, Polarization, Moralization, and the Undermining of Equality. We will talk about respect, or the lack thereof, in our political discourse. We will talk, of course, about civility in our political discourse, or the lack thereof. And we will talk about the toxic political discourse that we have in this moment, and ultimately its impact on the future of this democracy, or as I call it, an experiment in democracy. We ain't quite there yet. We got a Madisonian framework. We're still working on democracy as I see it, but I digress on that for now. Let me just mention once again that this entire program today, it turns out, we didn't plan it this way, but it works out okay. All 3 hours today, we're talking about democracy, with the state of our democracy. We did it in the first hour with Mark Morial from the Urban League and Kelly Wright. We're doing it in this hour with these two authors, Jeff and Elizabeth, and we'll do it in the third hour with another great author. And his book is called Exurbia Now, The Battleground of American Democracy. We'll talk to David Maciostra in our third hour. So all 3 hours today, really talking about the fragility of our democracy. Jeff, good to have you on this program today, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us on.
It's good to have you. Elizabeth, how are you today?
I'm great, too. Thank you so much.
It's my great honor to have you both. Let me just start with some broad questions, and we'll let it do what it do as we move through this hour. I guess the first question is, and I'm sure you both may have different answers to this, and that's fine by me, but when it comes to respect, when it comes to civility, what's your research suggest about when we went off the rails? You first, Jeff.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't go back in time. Our research is just over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's easy. It's really easy to think of things were a whole lot better, a long time ago. But I recently heard a podcast about Spiro Agnew. Remember him?
Sure.
And, he was talking about the news media, doing lies and so on and so forth. But having said all that, I do think that polarization probably is the mark of the loss of respect. And I'll talk about that a little more, but I'll just say we used to have Southern Democrats and we used to have moderate Republicans. And as those categories have declined, I think political rhetoric has heated up and respect has declined. Beth, you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So it is true that polarization has increased dramatically, especially what we call affective polarization. Political scientists call it that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that we basically just hate the other party. We just hate them. And that has increased dramatically over time. And that tends to obviously affect the rhetoric, and it affects how we think about each other as fellow citizens in this democracy.
Beth, tell me more then. Jeff sort of teed this up, but I'm fascinated by this. Tell me more, as you see it, about the relationship, the link between polarization and respect, or the lack thereof.
Yeah, so we argue that respect, there are two different kinds of respect. Recognition respect is the idea that we should just respect each other as fellow human beings. So it's universal. We should respect everybody, right, in that way. We also talk about civic respect, which is our willingness to listen to and engage with people who disagree with us. And for both of those, we found in our research that people, partisans who really hate the other party, they have a hard time with both types of respect, especially civic respect. So I think the idea is that if you just hate the other side, then you're much more likely to stereotype them. You refuse to talk to them, and then you are more likely to stereotype them. You're more likely to delegitimize the opinions that they do have. So there are all sorts of things that we cover in our book that cover this idea that the more we hate the other side, the less willing we are to give them just basic respect.
I think this is going to be a good hour. I'm starting to feel it already. I know exactly where I'm headed. We've laid the groundwork, and I'm ready to go. I specifically want to interrogate this notion of these two different kinds of respect. Recognition respect and civic respect. They go into a deep understanding of that, or unpacking of that, I should say, inside the text. Recognition respect and civic respect. Seems to me you can't have the latter if you don't have the former. And that's part of where I want to begin when we come forward. Why we are lacking so much in the former, just basic recognition respect. You can't respect somebody civically. You can't respect my point of view and argue with me civilly if you don't see me for who I am as a human being. You don't respect my humanness. Black Lives Matter, somebody once said. A lot to talk about. The book is called Respect and Loathing in American Democracy, Polarization, Moralization. I ain't got to that yet. And the Undermining of Equality. Going to be a great hour with Jeff and Beth. Stay with us. I'm Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Support comes from Getty, presenting Memnon, a world premiere theatrical event under the stars. Memnon tells the tale of a powerful Ethiopian king who fights alongside Troy during the city's darkest hour. This epic Greek myth has been overlooked for over a millennium. Until now. Memnon is co-produced by the Classical Theater of Harlem, Thursdays through Saturdays this September at the Getty Villa Museum. Tickets are available now at getty.edu.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do...
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust new Febreze car vent clips, now with 3 times greater scent control, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with new Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing, which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
You are indeed, and I'm glad about it. Our guests in this hour are political scientists Jeff Stringer-Halev and Elizabeth Tice Morris. We're talking about their provocative new text. It's called Respect and Loathing in American Democracy, Polarization, Moralization, and the Undermining of Equality. We'll unpack a little bit of all of that as best we can in the hour that I have. But in case you've just tuned in, Beth moments ago went inside the text and pulled out 2 different kinds of respect that I want to interrogate right now. The first is recognition respect. The second is called civic respect. It seems to me, Beth, as I said a moment ago, that you can't get to the second without the first. That's my read of this. But it does raise a fundamental question about why we are so lacking in this country, this multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic America. We're trying to advance a multiracial democracy. I'm not sure that one can do that if one doesn't have a basic level of recognition respect. Tell me more, Beth.
Yeah, so I actually think Jeff is better for answering this question. But basically, the idea is that respect, this recognition respect, is something that is just universal. And you're right, I think, that you can't have you can't interact with your fellow citizens if you don't have that basic level of respect. Jeff knows more of this.
I'm laughing already because I've asked 2 questions. Jeff passed the baton to Beth. Beth passed the baton to Jeff. This is not going to be an easy conversation to moderate, but I'm going to do my best. All right, Jeff, take it, sir. Take it.
Yeah, I actually think Beth is selling herself short. I mean, she did a great job. Recognition, respect is just, I recognize you as a fellow human being, the dignity that we afford all human beings, I afford to you. And in the context of a democracy, I also respect you as a fellow citizen. And, and you matter, and that matters. And I think that's I'm a full stop.
But it's a full stop, but not quite yet. We're not quite to the stop sign yet, and here's why. Because it seems to me, as I said a moment ago, work with me here. It seems to me that you cannot advance notions of a multiracial democracy if we don't have a basic level of recognition, respect. My sense is, in going through your text, that you all think that we're lacking in that regard. So what does that lack mean long term for trying to establish a multiracial democracy? Jeff, go a little deeper with me now, please.
Yeah, no, so you're right. So when I said full stop, I said what I meant is that we ought to grant everyone recognition.
Sure.
But we don't always do that. And, I mean, there are a variety of reasons for that. Obviously, there's racism and there's sexism. But also, I think this intense polarization and hatred of opposing partisans really makes it harder for people to respect the other side. And I think that's a big problem. So one of the interesting findings of our book is that when you ask people in the abstract, do you believe in respect? Almost everyone says yes. And then when you say, do you respect Democrats or do you respect Trump supporters or Clinton supporters? This was done after 2016 election. People say, well, I'm not sure about that one.
Right.
And so they know that they ought to believe in respect, but they really, really have a hard time practicing it. And I think that's a problem for us, for our democracy. Yeah.
I could have commenced. I could have begun our conversation here. I did not, but I want to just pause and address this now because words have meaning. The title of the book is called Respect and Loathing in American Democracy. So I'm just going to start asking questions, and y'all can figure out who's going to answer them. I'm going to stop directing stuff and let y'all figure it out since y'all keep passing the baton to each other. But my question, though, is when we say respect, what do we mean in this context? Because I do not agree. I'm talking about myself now, personally. I do not agree with Donald Trump's policies. I don't know that has anything to do with respect. It turns out that I don't have much respect for Donald Trump either. Well, that's a character question. We'll come back to that later. But in terms of a book that's called Respect and Loathing in American Democracy, when we say respect, what do we mean? Because I can disagree with you, but I'm not sure that has anything to do with respect.
Go ahead, Beth.
Well, so I think it's important to point out that we're talking about respect of people, right? So people hold multiple different political opinions and policy stands and all this kind of stuff, and we're talking about respecting a person. And I think it's important to make that distinction. So I might just detest somebody's stand on a particular issue, or I might even detest them because of who they voted for. But that's a separate thing to thinking about having respect for them as a person. And I think the whole idea of recognition respect is that we need to respect other people. We need to respect people regardless of what they believe. This is recognition respect. Regardless of what they believe, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of who they want to spend their private time with, regardless of, all of these things, we need to just respect them as fellow human beings. When it gets to the actual positions that people hold, we're moving into more of the civic respect realm, where I need to be able to engage and listen to somebody I disagree with, and that's a lot harder in my point of view. That's really hard.
Yep. Not that that's ever been easy to listen to people who you vehemently disagree with and remain civil. I'm not suggesting that's ever been easy, but when it comes to civic respect, I'm pivoting here now, we are completely off the rails in that regard. The incivility in our political discourse is something that's troubled me for years. I've written about it. I've talked about it on this program, on TV and radio. I've given speeches about it. So let's unpack this notion of civic respect, because earlier, Jeff, you gave me some of the reasons, which I understand this audience is smart. They get it. There are reasons why recognition respect is so shallow, so lacking, why there's such a dearth and paucity of that in our society. But why are we so, why are we missing the mark so much when it comes to civic respect?
So I think it's because we often politically stereotype people. If we hear that someone is a Republican or someone votes for Trump, we kind of assimilate them to Donald Trump. And also, we assume the worst parts of the party, from our point of view, is what characterizes them. So this is political stereotyping, and what civic respect means, to some degree, is not assuming the worst about everybody else. I'm going to quote, if I may, for a minute, former President Barack Obama at the DNC, which I think you were at.
Sure, I was.
And these are his words, and he says this: democracy isn't just a bunch of abstract principles; it's the values we live by, it's the way we treat each other, including those who don't look like us or pray like us or see the world exactly like we do. That sense of mutual respect has to be part of our message. Our politics have become so polarized these days that all of us across the political spectrum seem so quick to assume the worst in others unless they agree with us on every single issue. Now, I'm not going to read more and more, but I encourage your readers to go listen to that part of the speech. And I'm not suggesting that President Obama read our book, but boy, it sounds exactly like what we are saying, that we assume the worst about others instead of listening, instead of realizing that there is a nuanced world out there. So one question that we have to ask is, and I'm sure, John, this is a question you've asked, is why haven't as many black voters, according to the polls, supported Kamala Harris right now as they have supported Democratic candidates in the past? Now, she may get there, but we don't want to ascribe racism and sexism to all these voters of color who are right now some of them, not a large portion, but still a significant minority, skeptical or wondering or not quite sure, right? And I don't think political stereotyping and just calling people names, I don't think that's helpful.
Nope.
I think we need to understand their concerns, I think that's important.
No, Jeff, you said a whole lot there. I didn't want to interrupt. You were on a roll, and I'm glad you got it all out in that in that moment. But there's a lot to interrogate, given what you just said. 3 or 4 things. I've scribbled them down. I've scribbled them down right quick. Let's go. Let me start with this. Number one, you were right about the fact that not all of the not everybody in Black America. We are not a monolith. Not everybody in Black America. We saw a bunch of Black folk on stage at the RNC in Milwaukee endorsing Donald Trump. We discussed that in our last hour. These are Republicans, these Black Republicans, Black conservatives who support Donald Trump. So Black folk are not a monolith, as we all know. And it is true that at this point, while Kamala Harris is tracking quite nicely with Black voters, she is not tracking at the level that Barack Obama was. And I raised this issue on our program last week. We shall see in the coming weeks. I was going to say months. We ain't got very many months left. In the coming weeks, we shall see if she gets to that Obama level of support intra-Black America. We'll see about that in the days ahead. But since you mentioned Obama, and I just mentioned Obama, let me, this is fascinating because I'm literally looking at this right now. While I'm on the air, I'm doing 18 things at once. I'm paying attention. I'm listening, but there's always breaking news. There's a big story now that is on CNN's website. I invite people to read it when we were off the air today. Don't leave me now. But there's a story on CNN. Let me read the headline because it juxtaposes quite interestingly with your quote from Barack Obama in his speech last week. Here's the headline. Congressional Democrats urge Harris to focus on character over policy on the campaign trail. They talked to a number of Democrats, dozens of them, who are telling Kamala Harris, according to this story right now on CNN's website, that these congressional Democrats are urging Kamala Harris, according to this story in CNN, to focus on character over policy on the campaign trail. I don't want to color my question much more than this. When you have one party urging its leader, its nominee, to focus on character and not policy, how does that? Square that for me, rather, Jeff or Beth, with what we're talking about right now about respect and loathing in American democracy. And I don't want to unapologetically, intentionally, I'm not coloring it much more than that. You heard what Jeff said, quoting Obama. We're talking about respect and loathing in American democracy. And now congressional Democrats are urging her not to focus on policy, but to focus on character. I can see where that's going to take us if she takes that advice. I now yield to Jeff or Beth.
Beth, do you want me to go or do you want to go?
Yeah, you can go.
This is why in radio, talking to two people, you direct traffic because this happens too much. But go ahead, Jeff.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think partly this is just smart politics. And I think, Tavis, you're pointing out to attention, which is that sometimes our political leaders do things to win, which in fact does undermine the respect we want in politics. So what I would hope, and what we're focusing on here, what the Harris campaign is focusing on, is the 10% of voters who haven't made up their mind yet and who are going to decide the election. And for these voters, policy matters, but it's only one of a mix of things that matters, right? They're also looking at the character of the person. They're also looking at who they want to lead the country, who they think is more presidential. So my hope for Kamala Harris is that she runs a campaign, and I think it's fine to contrast her character traits with former President Trump, but does it in a way that doesn't ridicule him. She calls him an unserious man at the convention, and I've been thinking about that, and I think that's okay. She didn't call him dumb, which is what he calls her, right? Which I think is demeaning and is a terrible thing. She used, I think, a careful adjective to describe him, and I think as long as she does that, I think it's fine. I think she can point out that he talks in a way that's stream of consciousness. That is, I think, often true. So I think as long as she doesn't ridicule him and make fun of him in a way that I think is is bad. I think it's okay, but I also think she does need to talk about policy, and I think she does. I don't think she has to release a policy book like Project 2025. So 900 pages.
So let me ask you, when you said your first response to my question was it's smart politics, and I kind of fell back in my chair. I'm trying to juxtapose, there's that word again, trying to square a book about respect and loathing in American democracy with one of the co-authors telling me that it's smart politics to focus on character and not policy. I'm not saying you're wrong. Did you mean to say it's smart politics or strategic politics? I'm just looking for clarity here.
Yeah, well, it's strategic, but I'm not sure there's a big difference. I mean, she wants to win the election, and so I mean, I do think I'm trying to straddle a line here between doing the thing that gets to the election and being respectful. But I do think there are lines, right? Like, I think when you say the only way I'm going to lose is when the other side cheats, I think you are crossing that line.
Right.
And Vice President Harris does not cross that line. She does not say that, right? She does not call Donald Trump dumb. And so obviously I do think that former President Trump does cross the line in various ways. And I don't think she does. And I do think that she does have to talk about policy. And she is going to do the CNN interview, I think, tonight or tomorrow night. And so I do think, but she needs to appeal to voters in all kinds of different ways. And I think we have her opponent is an octogenarian who is uneven in so many ways. Do we want that kind of person leading the country? I think it's a fair question.
Yeah.
And I think she can do that respectfully and ask those questions.
I am the first person to tell you that character matters. One of my favorite books, as a matter of fact, is a book called Character Matters. Came out years ago, written by a guy named Thomas Lacona. It's really a book about values education and a values education curriculum that he argues should be taught in our schools. But the book is called Character Matters. I love the title. So I believe that character matters, and I believe in many respects that Donald Trump is lacking in character, that the kind of character we want inside the body, the mind, the heart, the soul, the spirit of the person that leads this nation. So I think those questions may be legitimate, but I have a real problem with congressional Democrats telling her to focus on character and not policy. Character over policy. That's exactly why we're in the situation that we're in right now. Because everybody's covering the horse race. The media covers the horse race. Too many politicians want to focus only on character and not on policy. Because the truth of the matter is that Donald Trump's character could not be what we want in the White House. It's also true that Kamala's policy could not be what we want. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying focusing just on character doesn't necessarily get me to understand better what your policy is going to be if you win. I digress for now. The book is called Respect and Loathing in American Democracy. More with Jeff and Beth when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The White House is observing Overdose Awareness Week today by hosting families who have lost loved ones to overdoses. Overdose Awareness Week was declared by the Biden administration to mourn the losses and acknowledge the toll taken by the overdose epidemic. Lowe's is pulling back on its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies after pressure from conservative podcaster Robbie Starbuck. Starbucks said he approached the company last week and said he planned to take aim at them over their employee resource groups and donations to Pride events. A new poll shows a majority of Americans believe you need $200,000 to be happy. The financial advice website cardrates.com recently surveyed 780 employed Americans to get their feelings on money and happiness. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A rough night for both of LA's baseball teams. The Dodgers lost at home to Baltimore, the team with the second-best record in the American League. The Dodgers still have a 3-game lead over San Diego and Arizona in the NL West. The Angels' slump continues. Last night's loss at Detroit increased the Angels' losing streak to 6. The Angels are 2-12 in their last 14 games. The LA Sparks bring a 7-game losing streak into tonight's home game against the WNBA's best team, the New York Liberty. The Liberty are 26-5. LeBron James has laid down an important family rule regarding his son Bronny, his new teammate with the Lakers. Whenever the father and son are around the team in a game together or in any basketball environment, LeBron said Bronny cannot call him dad. Away from basketball, LeBron said the word dad is okay. Otherwise, LeBron wants Bronny to call him 2-3, Brian, or GOAT. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis is under attack. I can't get his radio station on my transistor. I'm getting the Asian station that he's right around, but they're not letting KBLA 1580 come in. I'm not getting the black man. So let Tavis know he's under attack. Cyber attack, racist attack, fascist attack, but he's under attack. And they doing something to disrupt his radio station so they won't get the truth out to us.
Hey, it's Tavis. We appreciate all that love, let me tell you, because we may very well be under attack on all sides. Just because you don't believe in conspiracy theories don't mean they ain't after you. But in reality, sometimes stuff happens with the signal from the studio to the tower, which sends our programming to your car, home, office, or your transistor radio. But when you download the KBLA 1580 app, the sound is clear as a bell all day, all night, anywhere in the world, from Los Angeles to Lagos. So we love all of our listeners, no matter how you hear us. But when you download the KBLA 1580 app and hear that richness, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. But don't take my word for it. Download the KBLA 1580 app right now. I'm Tavis Smiley, and I approve this message.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and political scientist Jeff Springer-Halev and Elizabeth Tice Morris. Their new book is called Respect and Loathing in American Democracy, Polarization, Moralization, and the Undermining of Equality. We've been talking, for the most part, about the polarization in our politics. I promise you we'll get to moralization and the undermining of equality here in just a second. But Donald Trump has been pilloried for quite some time now. About saying with regard to Charlottesville, Virginia, and the protests there and the deaths there. He's been pilloried for years for saying that there are good people on both sides. Good people on both sides. I'm wondering if in some ways, Jeff and Beth, that's what you're saying in this book, that there are good people on both sides.
Yeah, we are. But I also want to say that we put, so recognition, respect is universal, but civic respect, we put some boundaries on it. And one of the boundaries we put on civic respect is that we need to give respect if people are within the confines of a democratic political system. That is, if you're espousing really anti-democratic things, we don't have to listen to and engage with you, because this is all, our whole project is about trying to bolster our democracy. We believe very strongly in democracy and want to see it strong. Right. And so we put this boundary on civic respect at the boundary of democracy. So if you are a very far right person who's arguing, for example, that black people shouldn't, we should have an only all-white democracy or all-white political system, and that black people should not be given the same rights as white people, I don't have to listen to that, because that's very anti-democratic.
Yeah. What I couldn't agree more, obviously, as an African American, with your assessment. And yet I wonder, Beth, whether or not Americans are on the same page these days about what it means to be anti-democratic. And here's why, again, I'm not rubbing on Mr. Trump per se, but he is the candidate of the moment up against Kamala Harris. So much of that Project 2025 agenda, which he's tried to distance himself from, but even if he does that successfully, so much of his own agenda, the things he's already said he would do when he gets into office, are clearly anti-democratic. There's no question about it. It's just anti-democratic, so that he's already outside of the boundaries of earning and deserving civic respect. Does that make sense to you? From my perspective, at least.
Yeah. Although I would say there are some things that he says that are not anti-democratic.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
So I don't think that we can say we don't have to listen to him at all.
Right.
Because he is anti. I think we should say, I'm not willing to listen to this anti-democratic stuff, but I am willing to listen to this other stuff. I also think, our book is about how we think about our fellow citizens.
Sure.
And I think it would be very misguided for people to assume that all Republicans support the 2025 plan.
Sure.
Because a lot of them don't, right? Or they might like parts of it and not other parts. And so I really think we need to, part of our mission here is to say, you really need to talk to people and try to understand them. Yeah. And then if you find out that, whoa, this is somebody who's super anti-democratic, I'm going to step away now. I don't have to listen for a while, right? I can step away. So
here's what I'm wrestling with, Jeff, and I am coming to you specifically now because Beth has already sounded off on this. So don't pass the baton now. You answered this. I'm coming to you specifically because Beth said a moment ago that the way you define civic respect is that there are certain things that you say, if they're anti-democratic, that I don't have to listen to. I ain't got to give you no respect, pardon the pun, on that particular issue, but I can't just ignore you with everything you're saying, because there are things that Donald Trump says that are not, for example, necessarily anti-democratic. Here's my question. What then becomes a disqualifier across the board? What becomes a disqualifier? When you are trying to overturn the results of an election, when you are encouraging an insurrection, which is basically treasonous, I don't know that I can split hairs anymore. I don't know that, to Beth's point, I take it intellectually. I don't know that I can listen to anything else you're saying when you are trying to overturn and overthrow a legitimate democracy, when you don't want to accept the results of a legitimate election. I really don't know that I can listen to the other 40% when you're completely out of bounds on the 60% as it relates to the fundamental premise of what it means to live in a democracy. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think Donald Trump is a challenge for our book because I think he is hard to respect, and I'm not going to explain why because you just did a great job explaining why that's the case. But I think the distinction that Beth made is an important one between Donald Trump and people who support the Republican Party. Because there are many people who support the Republican Party who do believe that elections should be, fair, and we're not at January 6th. And so, and I think this is I think a real challenge. It's a challenge for me sometimes, which is how do I distinguish my great disregard for Donald Trump while still respecting the many people who support the Republican Party. And I think what we need to do is realize that political parties are very big tents, and people support them for all kinds of reasons. And there are many people out there who feel, correctly or not, but with perhaps some truth, that the Democrats aren't speaking to them. They're left behind in some way. And so they're not thinking about January 6th when they're pulling that Republican lever, right? They're thinking about their own lives and who they think will make it better. And so I'm not disagreeing with you about Donald Trump. I just think that we need to think of people supporting the Republican Party as people who deserve civic respect until they prove otherwise. And some of them, of course, might prove otherwise. But not all of them and not many of them.
Fair enough. The book's subtitle, as I mentioned a few times already, is Polarization, Moralization, and the Undermining of Equality. Somebody talk to me about moralization. What do we mean by this?
Okay, Beth's going to take that one.
So I am. So moralization is the idea that we don't just take policy stands, or we don't just take stands on issues kind of broadly defined, but we hold them as moral issues. In other words, disagreeing with me on that issue makes you evil. So it's not just like a normal issue where I might think this, you think that, and I think, hey, that's fine. Instead, it is the case where if I moralize the issue, then anyone who disagrees with me is immoral or evil, or somehow on the evil side of things. So what we argue in our book is that there are different moralized worldviews that people hold across the two parties. And Democrats tend to hold a social justice worldview that they moralize. They think that we need to have equality in our country, especially racial and gender equality, to be able to have, to be a moral society, to be a good society. Republicans, on the other hand, tend to hold what we call a national solidarity worldview, and they moralize that. They think the United States, we as Americans need to be united to be able to fight against any forces in the world that might try to, undermine us in some way. And those two different worldviews are really pitted against each other. They clash in an important way.
Nope. Beautifully explained. I get it, and the audience does as well. The book is called Respect and Loathing in American Democracy, Polarization, Moralization, and the Undermining of Equality. We've talked about polarization. Beth just nicely unpacks this notion of moralization. When we come forward, we'll talk about how all this leads to an undermining of equality in America. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Tavis Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent. So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle.
Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
If it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide Free and Gentle. This back-to-school season, Tide and Downy are giving back with $1.5 million in scholarships. Enter to win. No purchase necessary. US/TC 17+. End September 30th. Rules. Tide.com/scholarship/official rules.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
What if the conversation about menopause and bladder leaks didn't have to be a secret? Always Discreet helps you embrace this new chapter with confidence, offering a bladder leak solution that keeps you worry-free. Its rapid dry cord quickly locks away even the biggest gushes with up to 0 leaks, 0 wet feel, and 0 odor, so you can jump, dance, sneeze, and laugh uninterrupted. Everyday protection for every level of leak. We've got you, always. Try Always Discreet today.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
Tavis Smiley does indeed continue right now with our guest in this hour. Pleased to have them, political scientist Jeff Sprinter-Halev and Elizabeth Tice Morse, who are authors of the new book, Respect and Loathing in American Democracy, Polarization, Moralization, and the Undermining of Equality. All right, let's turn the corner here. How does all of this, Jeff, Beth, aid to the undermining of equality in this experiment in democracy?
So when we, believe very firmly that structural racism is a main obstacle to justice, and we think if you oppose it, you're somehow an advocate for injustice, and then we lose our respect for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then we don't really think of you as our moral equal anymore. And I could give you the same story with the other side, right? That if you bend the knee, during the national anthem, we think you're somehow un-American and, not being true to this country. And therefore we look down upon you. We don't grant you not only civic respect, but we're also starting in these cases to withhold recognition respect. And when this happens, when we don't look upon the other side with some kind of sympathy and understanding, this idea of equality starts to recede. There's a book, making its rounds in academia right now called Against Democracy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my brother keeps telling me, Jeff, some people shouldn't vote,
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, equality becomes eroded a little bit, and that's a dangerous thing for a democracy.
I'm not sure I recall this in the text. I read so many books, but just remind me if I missed it or just forgotten about it. But is there an indictment of the media in your text and their role, their complicity in this?
No, we
don't talk.
Go ahead, Beth.
No, we don't talk about the media, but we get asked that question a lot, especially social media and the kind of vitriol that comes through the social media. And we don't address that. I think that our idea is that actually when we talk about civic respect, it can either be person to person or it can be like me reading a blog
Mm-hmm.
from somebody who I disagree with. And I think the same is true of social media coverage. So anyway, we don't cover media in our book.
Yep. I only asked that because.
But
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, like I know for myself, like I have a love-hate relationship with Twitter, and when I'm on Twitter, I get angrier at other people,
Yeah.
and when I'm off Twitter, I'm not as angry, and so I weed myself off of Twitter, and then when the whole Biden fiasco came up, I started reading Twitter again. And I think social media, people are in their silos. They read certain people. It gets them really angry in an abstract way, right?
Yeah.
Like if I was talking to this other person at my kitchen table, I wouldn't think, oh my God, you are such a horrible, monstrous human being.
Right.
But on Twitter, it's all abstract, and I feel my blood pressure rising, and I think it's a problem for many of us.
What causes my blood pressure to rise is when I read things that I know are flat out lies. I can't handle untruths. My role here every day is to try to seek the truth and speak the truth and stand on the truth and hopefully stay with the truth. And that's really a mantra for all of us. Life ought to be about a search for the truth. So what makes my blood boil, gets my temperature up, is when I see people saying and doing things that I just know are flat out untruths. It's a lie. It's not truthful. And so when we come forward, I want to close our conversation talking about that. It seems to me, if we're talking about respect and loathing in American democracy, we're talking about polarization and moralization and all these things that undermine our equality, and we're trying to get to an increased level of recognition, respect, and civic respect, we got to stop all this lying. And the problem is that these days, the truth is what each of us determine it to be. That's a real problem. We'll talk about that in our remaining moments here on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go.
The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
More honesty than you can handle.
More empowerment than you can imagine.
You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
You are indeed. Got about 4.5 minutes left in this conversation. I'm getting all kinds of great questions from people who are checking out this dialogue and into it deeply. Let me ask this question right quick because I want to get to one more thing before I lose you here. Tavis, how do the authors address the all too frequent scenario when oppressors ask for respect from those they are oppressing and act like a victim when they don't get that respect?
Tavis, can you repeat that one more time?
How do the authors address the all too frequent scenario when oppressors ask for respect from those who they are oppressing, but then act like a victim themselves when they don't get that respect?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No, I understand the question. Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of people like to play the victim even when they might not be. Mm-hmm. And I think, there are, like Beth said, there are times respect is not recognition. Respect should always be given, but civic respect should not always be given. Yeah. Even if someone is oppressing us, we probably have to recognize the humanity in them, unless they're like unbelievably horrible. But there are limits to respect, and if someone says you should respect my political views, even as I'm, stomping on your throat,
sure.
We don't.
Yep, I got it.
We don't.
Here's the exit question. I got about 90 seconds to go. I'll let you guys decide how you want to answer it. The issue of truth. It seems to me that truth these days is what we determine it to be, and I don't know how we get to recognition, respect, or civic respect if everybody has their own definition, their own version, their own subjective definition of what it means to speak the truth.
Yeah, so I think that the afactual or a-truth society in which we live, where people just don't seem to recognize truth as a real problem. I think our argument, though, about civic respect actually helps to solve the problem. Because if I accept something as factually true, but then I talk to people and find out that, wow, there's a lot of people who don't agree with this, who I thought would, then you actually start to undermine that thing that's going on out there where people are just espousing a lot of untruthful things.
Here's to more recognition, respect between now and November and beyond. Here's to more civic respect between now and November and beyond. And here's to the new book written by Jeff Spinner-Halev and Elizabeth Tice-Morse. It's called Respect and Loathing in American Democracy, Polarization, Moralization, and the Undermining of Equality. What a delightful conversation. Pleased to have had you both on. Thank you for your time. All the best to you. Congrats on the text.
Thank you so much.
My great honor. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The White House is observing Overdose Awareness Week today by hosting families who have lost